Dave, next thing we'll move into is there were comments made by De'Aaron Fox about the All-Star game.
Oh, yes.
Instead of me reading them, I'm just going to go ahead and I took the overlay down because I'm going to go ahead and just play the video. It's about a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video. This is De'Aaron Fox's comments about said All-Star game when asked about it.
Hey, De'Aaron, I don't know if you've heard about the plans to possibly bring back the All-Star game this weekend. Does that surprise you at all because of COVID-19 and all the conditions you guys are dealing with, traveling and everything? And is that something that you've thought about personally for yourself as your play has improved, your team's play has improved?
I mean, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I think it's stupid. If we have to wear masks and do all of this for a regular game, then what's the point of bringing the All-Star game back? But obviously, money makes the world go round, so it is what it is. But, I'm not really worried about it. If I'm voted, so be it. If I'm not, I don't.
Would you play in it?
You get fined if you're supposed to be in it and you're not hurt and you decide not to play. That's a hefty fine. So hell yeah, I would play in it. Hope I don't get fined for saying that shit.
So, Dave, I'm going to go ahead and say this.
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox may be my new favorite player in the NBA. Because he's saying what we're all thinking. Like, the first thing I thought of when I saw the NBA was going to have an All-Star game was, what's the fuck? Like, I thought the first thing what he said is what I thought first. Oh, money. Cha-ching, cha-ching, making some money. But then there's a part of me, too, that's like, the fuck are you doing? Like, we're trying to limit the spread. We've already had teams like the Wizards and the Grizzlies, more so the Wizards, have their seasons fucked a little bit by COVID.
I mean, the Heat.
And
the Heat are in fucking,
right, the Heat.
Third to last place in the league right now.
What would be going through Adam Silver's mind that he would want to say, hey, let's just bring all the best players from all these teams together to possibly maybe cross-contaminate each other? Like, there's a possibility of that. And then every team is fucked. Every team gets fucked. Because then they go back to their old teams and they all get fucked. Like, I agree with De'Aaron Fox. Yes, no to the All-Star game. No, it's a pointless fucking game anyways. The only reason we watch it is for an entertainment value, not for a final score. So if that's the case, why fucking play a meaningless game that doesn't even matter who wins or loses just because you want to have an All-Star game?
I agree completely, but I have a counteroffer, Ricky.
Yeah.
I have a proposal.
Yeah.
What if the NBA flipped the All-Star game a la the Pro Bowl to the end of the season, remove the players who'll be playing in the NBA Finals?
Mm-hmm.
I would say even the NBA Finals. So you have like an extra, 3 days break for the players who are going to the finals. So they're 100% healthy and in the clear. And again, by that point in the season, this year, we assume these basketball players will all be inoculated with the vaccine. That way we still get an All-Star game.
What about having it after the finals? Because then, what about after the final?
No one gives a fuck about that.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking is, what about like the weekend after the finals? Because then if LeBron James is in the finals, he can play in the All-Star game. Because really, that's the bottom line.
Nobody want to play in the All-Star game after you win or lose the finals.
Oh, I get it, Dave. But the only thing I have a problem with that is with the NBA, and the NFL doesn't really worry about this as much because it's more of the NFL's not a player-driven league like the NBA is. Like, is anyone going to watch an All-Star game? Let's say like this year, if it's the Nets and the Lakers, are anyone going to watch the All-Star game if AD, LeBron, Harden, Kyrie, and KD are not playing? The basketball junkies will. But will the casuals have enough of like, oh, well, those 5 players aren't playing? Fuck this then.
We don't even know if all 3 Nets are going to make the All-Star game, Ricky. First off.
I know. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, they wouldn't be able to if they were in the finals. That's what I'm saying.
Correct. But I don't think anybody wants to go play in an All-Star game after they lose the finals.
I get that.
So who the fuck cares? Like, you're already risking a 50-50 chance of losing the best players. So you might as well have it the weekend before. Give them the honors. You are an all-star. You are exempt from the game because you are in the finals. That's the real victory right there. You're the fucking best, man. I 100% think this happens, or this should happen this way, because again, it gives the safe answer and it still gives us the All-Star weekend. And I think that Chris Paul, LeBron James, and the members of the NBA PA are massive fans of the idea of we want to put the best product out there. And it's all about players first. So if they can buy themselves an extra 3-day rest for the NBA finals, they're absolutely going to take that up. Like that is a fucking huge win for them. And again, it's just this season. I'm not saying it's a forever. I'm saying this season, to these circumstances, you don't want a massive spread or event that could affect all 30 teams in the NBA. I think the safe bet is to just push the events of that weekend, the celebration, because then you could also turn into the award ceremony. Because I fucking hate that the award ceremony was in goddamn July last year.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the one issue I had. Like, here's another issue I have with it.
All right.
Well, it's just the whole thing I think of is like I'm thinking of the Pro Bowl, where
what if it's before the playoffs? But then no player in the whole playoffs will play. That's my thought.
Yeah, well, no, that's what I'm getting to. Like, I'm not saying everyone in the playoffs won't, but like, how many players each and every Pro Bowl do we hear? Oh, this player's not going to play, so here's a replacement. Oh, this one has an injury. Like,
that's what Darren mentioned.
To where it's like,
dude, if I don't play, I get fined. Like,
yeah, to where it's like, I almost look at it and like, for example, go back to, and yet again, this is me picking and choosing events that have already happened, but let's say we did this the season that like the 76ers got knocked out the way they did against the Raptors. Are some players going to look at it to where it's like, you know what, like with how I lost in the playoffs, I need to get away from, like, that's the thing that's different, where it's like, will some players in the playoffs that lose be like, I need to get away from basketball because of how emotional that series was, where the difference of playing it in the middle of a year is that you're still grinding. Like, everyone still has that. What?
Why is it different for football then?
It's just when they decided to have it. I'm not saying it's perfect.
No, I'm just saying, like, if football players have no problem playing in that game after they've lost a series or lost in the playoffs, whatever, then why is it any different?
The Pro Bowl originally used to be after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be. I think that, yet again, I think you run into the same problem the NFL does have of there are players that are like, after their season ends or after they get knocked out in the playoffs, they don't want to play in a Pro Bowl. They don't want to play. I know football has the added risk of the contact. So it's like players are like, I ain't going to fucking injure myself to play in a game.
Barely fucking have contact in that Pro Bowl now.
Back in the day, used to have more. And football is still football, to where basketball doesn't have that. But I worry if there will be stars, and maybe you avoid this by having, like, oh, you get fined if you don't go. But then,
I already have that.
But then at that point, it's like you're forcing, like, that's the whole thing where it's like, I'm not against it, but I don't know how it's going to work in execution. Like, I just have question marks about it. I would have to see
Adam
it.
Silver doesn't give a fuck about your problems, though. He's there to make money. And if we're trying to make money and do it safely, I think a year-end All-Star game makes more sense than a mid-year All-Star game.
Does. You're right.
I think it's a better answer.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
I think it gives the players an opportunity to rest before the NBA championship. And I think it gives everyone the ability to compete up to that point. And you're literally getting like players who are like, hey, I'm just wrapped up my fucking playoff run. I'm still at the highest point of my game in the season. Turn into the All-Star game. And again, he doesn't give a shit about the actual product on the court. It's all about the advertising money. He is there to make sure that the bottom line totals hit. And I think that game, you can't ride a higher point in the NBA season. Viewership is never higher than the NBA Finals. You don't see times where people are watching more and more basketball than the end of the year in the playoffs. So I think that by putting the All-Star game there, you are making more money and you are still drawing more attention to your sport. Your players are happier because they're all inoculated, and the players in the finals will have more break time. I think it's a massive win all the way around. Now, I think a mid-year thing would be dumb, and it's a risk that they don't need to take.
We agree that it shouldn't happen middle of the year. If they did do it where you're saying, I totally agree with you. It would make more sense. The only question marks I have is, like I've said, like, I am not thinking with my first one, I'm not thinking of it from a basketball junkie mindset. Like, if you watch every single basketball game and you're watching every single playoff game, like basically I'll relate it to this, where if you have a YouTube channel, your P1s, your for sure fans, they're going to watch whatever the fuck you do.
Right, so we don't care about them.
NBA doesn't have to worry about those. I worry, though, about the casual fans that if, like, for example, like I said, depending on who makes the finals, if certain players aren't there, like LeBron is the big one, LeBron, KD, and then any of the Nets, because that's the finals matchup that makes me worry about viewership, because you're taking 5 guys that most of them would probably make the All-Star game. Not all of them, but most of them. And then they can't play in it. How is that going to hurt the viewership from the casual fan? Will enough casuals be like, well, I'm not going to watch this year because LeBron's not in it and AD's not in it and KD. Then, like I said, the other part of, yes, I agree with you. Guys are at the highest, like, I've been working all year and I'm at the highest level of play. I could play in it, but would some players not want to play in it? Because it's like, for example, I bring up the example of Joel Embiid. Do you think Joel Embiid would want to play in a All-Star game right after he got eliminated from the Raptors? Now, I know money. I know you can find them, but like...
You can find them, but they also make money by being in the game, Ricky. Mm-hmm. It's a double-edged kind of thing, you know? They get an extra paycheck for being in the game. They get an extra paycheck for winning said game. And again, you still have the skills tourney and all that shit.
I mean, yet again, I'm going to ask the question of, is the fine big enough to where, like, a guy like Joel Embiid, or like the big star that makes money off his contract, makes money off of the sponsorships that he has, would any of them who basically if they're as strong of like, I'm not playing in it, would a fine or I get an extra whatever amount of money for winning the game, is that enough to make them want to play rather than like, whatever, fucking find me, who gives a shit, I make enough money as it is?
My answer is I don't give a fuck about you or your money. That's part of the contract. As Adam Silver, my job is to get the players to the game.
I'm saying, like, would the fine not affect some players? Because they'd be like, whatever, fine me.
Sure
it doesn't matter.
I'm sure it would, but they don't give a fuck about that. Like, Adam Silver's job is not to make sure that he's got a checklist of players who need to be there or else. No, he's there to make sure that ad revenue is there. He's there to make sure the commercials sell. He's there to make sure product placement's there. He's to make sure it's the Gatorade All-Star game sponsored by Pepsi, IKEA, and Volkswagen, or whatever the fuck we want to make it. Like, he is all about the dollars and the bottom line. He doesn't give a shit if the viewership is an 8 or a 12. You know, that's not his job. His job is to get the money back in the NBA's pockets. That's all the All-Star game is. Saying it's anything more than that is being childish. Like, saying this guy got 11 All-Star votes versus this one who got 7. No one gives a fuck, because the All-Star vote is a popularity contest.
Yeah. The other thing too that I don't
know if I'm incredibly jaded here, but that's my purview of that situation.
Yeah, it's just like the thing I feel like with this conversation is you and I come at it from different sides, where you are the basketball junkie. So like, you're going to come at it from that vibe of, I watch every game, I bleed basketball. I come at it more of like
ignore those people. My viewpoint is ignore the people who are junkies. You don't give a shit about them because their opinion doesn't matter.
I am coming at it from if X players are not going to be playing in it because of the finals, and if X more players say the fine doesn't matter to me, I'm not playing in it anyways because of when it is. If enough players don't play that are high caliber,
it's not just the fine, it's also contract stipulations, by the way.
What do you mean? Like, they
get bonuses if they are, like, in my contract, say I'm, you know...
Yeah, but they still get the honor, even if they don't play in the game.
That's the whole thing. Like, you heard, I know football's not basketball, but I've heard basketball players as well, but the one that strikes to mind is Pat McAfee. The whole thing of, like, in your contract, you literally get an extra $1 million if you make an all.
Because he mentioned that Irsay didn't, because
Irsay
he wanted to do Yeah, he didn't want to
Because
do the quarterback challenge.
technically his contract in legal writing said you do not get this money unless you play in this game.
Yeah, and he's like, I want to do the quarterback challenge. And they said no, and he said, well, fuck you then.
Right. So the point is that people have more than just that writing on them. You know, these guys who are not everyone in the NBA is gonna have generational wealth after they leave the game, and that's the thing you have to think about.
Though, but
there are literally a handful of guys who have that. So everybody else, do you want to say no to the chance at a $2 million bonus for making the All-Star game? No, I think I would rather have $2 million.
I'm still gonna throw it at this way though. Of yes, in the Pat McAfee story, Irsay paid him when he didn't have to, but at the bottom line, Pat McAfee still said no before he knew Irsay was gonna pay him. So like, if I'm saying I'm bringing up Joel Embiid's name, but like if a Joel Embiid, a Giannis, if
how many people quit their careers in the middle of their prime while they're being nominated Pro Bowls and extensions? The answer is about 7.
No, I know. Like
in the history of the game,
circumstance is
an asterisk. Yeah, right? He is not the standard. He's the exception to the rule.
I'm just saying if any of these top players like Giannis, Embiid, Ben Simmons, Levine, any of these ones that could be in the All-Star game, Dame Lillard, Jokic.
Squeezing Levine there, eh?
He's number 5 on the fucking fan vote so far, so give him some respect. But like, if any of these players, Kawhi, Paul George too, if any of them go, well, fuck it, I'm not playing because X amount of money doesn't matter at the end because I do have the wealth to where I can say it doesn't matter.
It's not about the money to these people, though.
But what I'm saying is,
it's about their passion for the game. Usually, that's why they go to All-Star games.
All I'm saying is if any of them pass on it for whatever reason it is, fuck whatever reason, use whatever reason you want. If any of them pass, plus the players that wouldn't be playing because of the finals, the casual fans that you're saying, okay, we got to care about them, would they still want to watch? Without like, wow, where are the fucking stars? I feel like that would hurt casual viewers and hurt the viewers you're trying to bring in because you already know your dedicated ones are going to watch. That's all I'm saying.
Basketball viewing numbers suck anyway.
Yeah, like I was going to say, there was an article 2 years ago, the last time we had an All-Star game. All-Star game ties record low ratings.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So like, really doesn't even matter if they have a game. I think the thing I was going to throw out there is instead of having an all-star game, should basically the NBA do what basically we were doing at the beginning of quarantine, where it's like, all right, you're going to vote for X amount of players to be in this tourney where they're playing 2K against each other. Do what fucking killed at the beginning of quarantine. Dave, you say the jerk-off motion. People were watching it. People were talking about it.
Did you watch the Pro Bowl?
The Pro Bowl?
Just happened, yeah. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't, but I'm not.
Yeah, because no one gives a fuck about Kyler Murray playing 2K.
But
or Madden, I'm sorry.
For some reason, people did for the NBA. That's all we were talking about at the time. Oh, did you see Cat play D-Book and all that? Like hit to where
I didn't watch any of that.
they could do that. Like they could do that. If like that to me is more entertaining than watching an NBA game.
No. I vehemently disagree that watching 2K is more entertaining than watching even the top 60 players play basketball.
Okay.
You could take out the top 10 and say you can have the 11 through 60 in this game. Like, great fucking game. Shit, you give me 30 through 60, I'd be like, great fucking game.
But yet again, let's say 15 through, like number 15 is the best player in that
You're
game.
Saying 5 players. That's the worst case scenario for Adam Silver in my situation.
Yeah. So then let's say
unlikely.
Let's say top 10 are out. Just for the sake of argument. Like, but
because that's 2 guys or 2 teams in the championship per you.
But I am saying I do believe there will be a couple players from the playoffs that will say no.
Jimmy Butler notoriously last time drank and enjoyed his way through the weekend and then did not play in the game, right? Yeah. If I recall correctly, yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm just saying where I do fear that the casual numbers would not be.
And
That's
why
all
do
I'm saying.
players play the game anyway, Ricky? Like, if you're making this big of a
That's a
statement about
conversation
it,
for a different day, Dave. Like,
no, but you're
I
making
hate
it sound
All-Star
like
games
this
in
game's a
general.
chore.
I hate All-Star
And-
games in general. I'll be honest. Like, they have
But you're
no
making
appeal
it
to me.
sound like this is like they shouldn't be obligated to play in this game, which
they shouldn't
I
be
agree that's a different
obligated.
conversation. But like, we haven't seen players in the past opt out of All-Star honors in large groups. It's like a one-off or a two-off.
Yeah. The only reason I'm bringing this up is the fact that
Darren said himself, who played?
no, I know that, but like yet again, he's saying this knowing like the situation is that the game is in the middle of the year. The world we're talking about is if the game is moved before the finals. That's the only reason I'm bringing up players possibly not wanting to play in it. Because like I said, it's a different circumstance. We're in the middle of the season, you're like players aren't going to go, yeah, I'm not going to play in that game.
Because see, that's the one where I would be less likely to play in the game if I had a choice.
Because it would fuck up your season?
Yeah, if I'm on a fucking heater right now, why am I risking playing in a game, getting out of sync with my team? Doesn't make fucking sense.
I agree with you, but like that's
the All-Star weekend is all about hanging out with the fucking best in the league. It's a networking event, Ricky.
Yeah, yet again, all the points you're making are great. It's just the thing that
you're just like I just refuse to see it from that point of view. I'm sticking for the little guy.
I see where you're sticking from. It's just like I said, and this is a worry. This is a worry that if we ever did happen in this hypothetical that we created, yet again, once it happens and it's successful, okay, I was wrong. But like, it's just something where we hear it all the time, where players after a playoff loss, most of them say right after they lose, they got to disconnect. It's like they got to get away. So it's like if I lose, let's say someone loses in the first second round,
she cried like a bitch in the locker room. But like outside of him, I don't remember anyone else saying that.
But like if they're like, I got to get away and just disconnect, because usually that's what you do in the off season is you disconnect for a little bit. Like Aaron Rodgers this past time when he lost, it's like, well, I'm gonna get away from football for a little bit, and then when the time is right, I'll come back to it and we'll get ready to go. Like, I feel like that's how all athletes are. They need to basically step away from the game during the off season.
Slightly just different situation there with his organization choosing to not give him help to get into a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We don't know how any of the stars are going to feel following a playoff loss because we don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. That's all I'm saying. For if the game was happened in that situation. But